Morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today's advice letter is about weight and empathy and how to respond when somebody tells you that they're insecure. Let's hear it. Hello, Hayes. When friends and family bring up their weight, I always seem to say the wrong thing. I want to sound genuine and empathetic, but even when I say things like, I felt that way too, or I think you're beautiful, their reaction is just negative. How do you respond in a way that actually soothes someone's insecurities instead of accidentally adding to them? What would you say in this situation? Yours can't say the right thing. Oh my gosh, so I picked this letter last night before I went to bed and was thinking about it. Fun thing to think about when you're going to sleep, but it actually was a fun thing. And gosh, there's so much I want to say about this. First thing is that no matter the topic, but including weight, there's no perfect thing for you to say to somebody. There are no perfect words, so stop trying to find them. And it's hard to remember that. Like, even as a person who knows that and who believes that, I struggle with it too. And sometimes when I'm with a friend and they're saying something and I feel my brain going to, oh my gosh, what's the right thing to say to this? I don't know what to say. I have to actively remind myself, you don't need to worry yourself with that right now. You don't need to worry yourself with what the words are. Just trust that I know how to be supportive without my words. So I want you to trust that you know how to do that too. Now, the next thing I'm going to say doesn't quite contradict that, but there's some caveats here for the weight discussion in particular. The way we talk about weight often has roots in how your family talks about weight. And weight often, not always, but weight often is like a proxy for control. So I have historically found it really hard to talk with people about weight when that acknowledgement of how without the acknowledgement of the link between weight and control, trying to control something. Our weight is something that seemingly we have control over. And a lot of people when things feel out of control, a lot of people will go to their weight as a thing to control, as an unhealthy thing to control. And I find it hard to talk about weight with people when we're not making that link. So that's one personal thing, but it's something that I want to bring up for anybody listening who is thinking a lot about their weight, but also it's just an important piece of context. And on that note, I have found it hard sometimes to talk about weight with people when they don't have self-awareness. And it's hard because it's almost like, of course I don't have self-awareness. When you are having an not everybody, again, sometimes I want to be really careful to not make large generalizations, but if you're struggling with your weight, you're really insecure about your weight, it's dominating your conversations, oftentimes you're insecure because there's some like dysmorphia going on, or you're not seeing things clearly. Of course, then it's going to be hard to have self-awareness about this topic and how you're bringing it up with friends and all of that when you in your private head, when you're thinking about your weight, when you're talking to yourself about your body, you're not bringing reality into the mix. You're bringing the dysmorphia, the delusion, the self-loathing, whatever it is. So it's like I both have empathy and care and kindness for the lack of self-awareness about the topic, and it can make it hard. I can also acknowledge that it makes it hard to have conversations. I am pretty boundaried in the way that I talk about weight with other people. I really don't ever bring it up. I don't ever really bring my own weight or my own thoughts about my body up with other people. Maybe I've overcorrected it. And I used to be much more boundaried too with how I discussed other people's weight insecurities with them. And the interesting thing about being boundaried that I want to clarify, I don't think there's such a spectrum to what a boundary is. You could have a boundary that you don't talk about weight and someone brings it up and you could say, I'm sorry, I don't talk about weight. That could be the boundary. I don't discuss this. My boundaries around weight tend to be more in how I respond to things, which I'm going to get into. So I don't want to give too much away. But this kind of connects, the being boundaried relates to the next thought I had, which is not all weight comments should be validated. So you as the letter writer can't say the right thing, want to know how to make somebody feel better, how to talk to them about their weight insecurity in a way that soothes them. But not all comments about weight should be validated or even discussed. Now, that's different, I think. Well, probably not all feelings should be validated either, but you can validate somebody's experience without making it specific to their weight. And When I say not all weight comments should be validated, like the context really, really matters. It does matter who is coming to you and what they're saying and what their history is. And I know we just talked about how self-awareness can be hard, but like what's their self-awareness of the situation, what's going on in their lives, all of that matters. The truth is like, I will have a different, if I had a friend, and I'm going to think of like friends, not even specific friends, but like people of the past when I was younger. If I had someone who, had no, like, to my knowledge, did not have a eating disorder, so they weren't struggling with something medically, but they were a person in a able body, and they just constantly, every time we sat down to eat together, were saying, like, talking about how full they are, or can't eat the French fries because I'm going to be so bloated later, or I'm going to be fat later. If they like regularly talked like that, one, I probably would have a hard time being friends with that person. And I'm pausing now because I do think that that is like a sad talking like that. I don't want to get too like psychological and medical, but talking like that, I have to imagine is a sign of a deeper issue. I do believe the way we talk about our bodies and our weight is reflective of deeper issues that we have, going back to control. But a lot of people don't want to go there. And frankly, even when you start to get into the deeper issues, our weight and our body is like a historical thing that we can always lean back on to hate ourselves for. And it's a shitty thing that I've done a lot of work on and I've made a lot of progress. But it's like talking about the weather. You know how talking about the weather is so easy? It's like what you resort to when you're in small talk. Hating your body and hating the way you look sometimes feels as easy as that. It's such an easy thing to fall back on when you need something new to hate about yourself. Ugh, awful. But I would have a hard time with that type of person. I would have a hard time being like, tell me more about how you feel, but maybe actually to challenge myself. Maybe that's actually a person who could use that kind of conversation the most. It's different though. The point I'm trying to make, that is different from somebody who comes to you and says, I've been so stressed with work lately and my eating habits have gotten out of control. I'm not eating during the day, but then I get home at night and I eat my whole cabinet and I'm not liking the way I feel in my body. And it's been making me feel really insecure. That is a different context than somebody who's just like complaining about their body as if they're fishing for compliments or as if it's like such a normalized part of their vocabulary that they don't even realize what they're doing. And I'm aware even now as I'm saying it that I'm sort of putting like there's good and bad on a pedestal. And I do want to, I want to resist that. But I do think the context matters in who you're talking to and how they're coming to you about the insecurity they have about their body. It matters for me, at least, in how I respond and sort of the level of care and kindness and openness and space that I'm able to bring. And you don't owe anybody, I don't want to use the word owe, like you don't need to give these conversations space if you don't have it yourself. So that should also be said. Like the first thing I talked about was there's no perfect thing to say, just give them space. You don't need to give someone space. You are allowed to be boundaried on certain topics. And if this topic for you is one where you need to have a hard boundary, like you don't discuss it, that's fine. I do think that weight talk is so ubiquitous. And the reality is that a lot of people and a lot of people you love are going to have challenging experiences in their body. That part of friendship and part of relationships is being able to listen and talk. There are caveats in there, but I'm really glad in my own life, I can say, that I've gotten to a place where I can talk with some friends about the challenges they're having in their body. It still is hard for me, and I still have to resist sometimes my own feeling of discomfort of like, why are you even bringing this up? That is truly how I feel sometimes when someone talks to me about, even when the context makes complete sense. Sometimes I feel my true human reaction when someone is like, I feel fat. And I am saying that because that's sometimes like a phrase that comes out. And like, should I even say that out loud because of the way it's like framing fat as a bad thing when fat is not a bad thing. But sometimes when people are coming to me in a real vulnerable way and talking about something, I feel like it's come up most often actually with some of my friends with kids, and after they've had kids, they'll talk about their body, and sometimes it's more in a joking way, and sometimes it's more in a self-loathing way. Sometimes my reaction is just like, why are you even giving that thought space? Which isn't a fair, generous reaction. I'm entitled to it, but I'm really glad that I've gotten to the place where I can like listen and not feel triggered or not feel like I need to bow out of the conversation or not feel like I then have the biggest thing actually is probably like a mental wall that goes up where I'm like, oh, me and you now, me and you are different in this way. I don't talk about this stuff and I try to push it away, which maybe isn't always also a good strategy. I try to push this away and I would never bring this up. Whereas you're really comfortable bringing it up and you don't seem to have the same thought process about this that I do. So you and I are different and now we can't be friends. I think I used to be a little bit more like that. Though I will stand on the hill that I do think people are way too cavalier about how they talk about weight and body stuff. Like the line between, it feels really murky to me, honestly. The line between glamorizing eating disorder behaviors and being real about what it's like to be a person in a body, in a world that criticizes bodies and values one type of body more than the other, I find it really confusing. Like, I find myself getting really angry even sometimes when people talk about, it's just such a, I think it's a topic that requires so much care. And people think, I sometimes think that people think they're being helpful when they talk about like, oh, I used to exercise because of XYZ, or like sometimes I think people think they're being helpful in how they talk about their own former disordered behaviors because they want to normalize it. But normalizing disordered behaviors is only helpful if you're calling it what the disorder is. And if it actually is that. I'm not sure if it's helpful to just like normalize destructive behavior and chalk it up to like being young. But that is a tangent and maybe a conversation for another time. I don't think all weight comments should be validated. And the context matters. And I think if you don't know the context for which the person is coming to you, like sometimes the context is obvious. Maybe it's a friend and you know that like they're a size 2 and they always do this. This is part of their MO. And maybe you feel like you know the context. But if you don't know the context, if someone's coming to you and they're saying something about their body that kind of seems out of left field, you can like dig a little. You can say, did something happen that brought this up? Did someone say something to you? Is this something you felt before? Thank you for telling me. Like you can do a little digging to kind of discover the context, and then gauge how you are able to show up in this conversation. One of the ways that I think you can be boundaried in a conversation, if you do choose to engage in it, I think that there's a way to honor the feeling of what they're saying without mentioning the weight at all. And this is typically my approach when I talk with people about weight. Excuse me. It's like, because I believe that weight, a lot of weight-based insecurity is about something else. I will often like want to talk about the feelings and I'll never actually say anything about the weight. So I could ask questions like, if someone says, oh, like none of my clothes fit, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and I just need to like eat healthier and cut out sandwiches. And if they're saying stuff like that, instead of talking about the weight, instead of saying something like, oh, well, maybe your jeans are just, sometimes my jeans are too small, or like maybe you've washed them recently, like maybe they just need more stretched. Instead of saying things that are directly about the weight in the body, I might say something like, tell me more about what that feels like. Like, what does this feel like for you when it comes up? What else is this bringing up? And I know some of those statements are like a little eye roll over therapized, but I think that asking someone to tell you more about what they feel is a good thing. So many people don't even get that fucking question. Tell me more. It's such a simple thing that really goes a long way. A friend of mine recently told me that she's noticed how much I bloom when she asks me thoughtful questions. And it was to be, I never, it's so true. I do. My love language, like the way I feel most loved is when someone asks me, a question that I can really tell they want to know what's true for me. They're not looking for some easy answer. They're not looking to make me feel better. They're not looking to make themselves feel better. I feel really good when people ask me questions, and it made me feel so seen that she noticed that. I would have never really been able to articulate that without her pointing it out. But tell me more about what that feels like is an example of a really great question if you don't have a more specific one yet. We all deserve to be asked, tell me more. So I think tell me more about your feelings is a great thing to say if someone's bringing to you their insecurity about their weight. You can also ask what's triggering the feeling for you, which I guess relates a little bit to the context and trying to find more context. Like, did they just have a child? So they're going through these changes in their body. Okay, normal. Now the conversation can be less about the fact that their pants don't fit, more about the changes of becoming a parent and what else has been going on in your body. I can imagine how hard it is to not feel like you have control over your body. Like, the point is not to dismiss completely the very real challenges that a person can be having in their body, but to keep the focus on what the actual problem is and what the actual insecurity is about. Because I think the only reason we feel insecure about our bodies is because of deeper feelings of self-worth, right? So many things could be grouped under self-worth. Those are some of my thoughts on that. I want to talk a little bit about the two examples you brought up of things you've said that you feel are kind and empathetic, but kind of land wrong. And I know that I don't bring up the examples to harp on them. I'm sure they're just two of many things that you've said, but I want to talk about them and kind of think a little bit about why they could land wrong. The two things are that you say, oh, I felt that too. If someone says, oh my God, none of my clothes fit and it fucking sucks and I blah, blah, blah. Oh, I felt that too. Don't worry, I felt that too. Or I think you're beautiful. I don't think either of those phrases are bad inherently. So let's be clear. Because remember, the first thing I said is that you don't need to have the perfect words. It's about being a reliable space. I don't think both of them are inherently bad, but they can land. I do see why they can land wrong. So for the sake of thinking about this deeply and overanalyzing a little bit, let's talk about why they could be. So first, I felt that too. This can go way beyond the weight discussion. I think this is one of the things people get wrong about empathy. Showing empathy to someone is not being so literal always about the fact that you have been in their shoes before or that you have felt the same thing. You can show empathy for someone without speaking at all. You can show empathy for someone by maintaining eye contact while listening, if that's something that you can do, by getting them a glass of water, by putting your hand on theirs if physical contact is appropriate and wanted in this dynamic. Empathy is not necessarily about words. And I don't think it's about saying we have a shared experience. People jump to I have been there too, in my opinion, way too fucking quickly when somebody is coming to them and being open and vulnerable. There is nothing that shuts me down more with someone than when I am taking a risk or I'm practicing being open about something. And within the first minute of me sharing something, they jump to tell me how they've experienced the same thing and go on a story about that. Even when I know that their intention is good, what it makes me feel like is that you don't actually have space to hear from me. And everybody deserves to have time where the attention really is really on them in a dynamic. So I know that the feeling comes from wanting to fix it. It comes from wanting to make someone feel better and feel less alone. But I think we make someone feel less alone when we give their story and their experience airtime. I think it can be helpful to say, I have felt that too. If someone is sharing something with you and they need it to be normalized for a second, that what they're experiencing isn't insane or isn't crazy, or they just need to know that this is something that other humans deal with. And even then, though, I think it's like you can say it quickly and then go back to listening to them. So as quickly as, oh, I remember feeling that also. Let me hear more about what it's like for you. Like that quickly. I think that quick of a, I've been there too, is totally fine. But it's when you say that you felt it and then you go on a story. It sort of takes the wind out of the bravery and the courage that maybe they've mustered up to be able to share this with you. So I'm not really a fan of that. I'm not a fan of it. Next up, you're beautiful. I don't think this one is, okay, so why, I do think I also, like I'm thinking of some more recent conversations that have been sort of weight-based with friends. I feel like after I've gone through the listening and the questions and all of that, I do often still end with, I think you look amazing, or I think I still say something like that. So I think it's a normal thing to say, and I understand why you say it, even if it doesn't always land right. I think one of the reasons why it might not land right is it like bypasses the feeling part a little bit. And I do think that people, when they bring some of this stuff up, do want time, even if they don't consciously know it, like they do want space to be able to talk about their feelings. And when you just say, oh, but you're beautiful, I think you're beautiful, it sort of doesn't give the feelings airtime. It tries to jump to the solution really quick. And I think that what so many people want, is just space to talk about the feelings. It also can be a little invalidating, which I guess is maybe the same side of the coin. When you jump too quickly to try to fix something, it can send a message that the pain is too much, the feelings are too much, and let's just jump right to fix it. And it can seem kind of ingenuine. Like, you think I'm beautiful? Okay. Even if the person is beautiful. Like, it's like, oh, of course you're going to fucking say that. You're my friend. Like, okay, you think I'm beautiful? It's sort of, it's empty words, because none of this is really about being beautiful. I think you're beautiful lands more as a random compliment. Like, I think you're beautiful really lands when someone picks you up in their car and they're looking very natural and you're going out to dinner and you say, you look gorgeous. I think you're so beautiful. You look amazing. Your skin looks incredible. I think those beauty-based compliments land more when they're out of nowhere than when they're in the context of that type of insecurity weight conversation. And if you, look, I know we're just overanalyzing why some phrases can be wrong. I get things wrong all the time. It's normal to get things wrong. You can always repair. Some of you might not be as in your, like I can be sometimes in my head when I'm, not always, but sometimes can be in my head, or sometimes I'll say something wrong and then I realize, I'm like, oh, fuck, Hayes, why did you just say that? I say it and then I can hear how it comes out wrong. I think you can always repair by literally saying, that did not come out right. Can I try again? Or I want to clarify what I meant when I just said that. It didn't sound how I intended, so let me try again. Or if you notice that you've been going too deep into fixing mode, you can say, you know what, I'm going to pause. I feel like I'm trying to fix this too much and I want to just give you space to talk. So let's start over. I'm going to stop trying to fix it. You can always repair. So I think it's important to move away from obsessing over exactly the right thing to say and thinking more about the space you can provide given this specific dynamic that you have with someone. You don't need to create the same space with every person. You don't need to create the same space within every conversation with a person. You might have some people in your life where you can talk about all sorts of personal stuff, but weight is just not a thing you can talk about because of how fucking chaotic the conversation can be, which is what I was trying to say earlier with the context, and not all weight-based discussions should be validated. I'm not sure exactly. I can't think of exactly what I said earlier in this conversation about when I was talking about like the different types of people and the different types of ways somebody can bring up weight. I want to amend, or I want to clarify in case I didn't say this clearly enough before. It's not that I think that some people are like worthy of feeling insecure about their body and other people aren't. I remember I made a video, this was like 2 years ago, about how arms are just arms. And in the video, I shared how I was feeling insecure about my arms. And one of my dearest friends said that to me. She was blow drying my hair. I was going out. I had a wedding later that night and she was doing my hair for me. And I said, I don't want to wear my dress tonight because I'm feeling insecure about my arms. And okay, here's an example of me bringing up a weight thing. And she said, arms are just arms. And it was like so moving and so profound. Like, and it made me think about how arms are the things that we like hold each other with. And, you know, my hand is connected to my arm and I can hold your hand and think about all my arms do for me. It was like such a profound thing to say. And I ended up making a video about it. And there were so many wonderful, supportive comments about how much that mantra means to them. But then there was one comment, and I'm ashamed of mad at myself for even remembering one comment. This is like, why don't I remember all of the positive ones? I remember the one negative one. But someone said, like, Hayes, you don't get to be a part of this. They actually probably didn't call me Hayes. I don't think this was a person who thinks of me in an endearing way. You don't get to be a part of this conversation as a petite person. And I really did think about that for a while. I thought about that, and I do think that there's some truth to it. I think there are, when I talk about this stuff, I have to like bring my own size into, I have to bring an awareness of my own body. And I know that there are things I might say that could land wrong or straight up be wrong because of that. And they could land wrong to some people and not land wrong to others. And I think I still am a human being. I'm still a human being who struggles with a lot of the same things that everybody struggles with, no matter what size you actually are. Because I think weight obsessions and weight fixations are about, for me and for a lot of other people, deeper things. That does not mean that some people's weight fixation is really about weight. I wouldn't even begin to guess that. You know, I'll leave that to their professionals. But I don't want anything of what I said here to be like, if you're skinny and neurotic, then you don't have a right to talk about your weight and have your weight insecurity dealt with as a serious thing. I do believe that you absolutely do deserve the space, but it's like, there are just some people, you might deserve the space from, there's like a certain character type where you totally might deserve the space from somebody, but it might not be me. I don't have a tolerance for certain types of conversations about weight, and it doesn't mean that that person isn't deserving of kindness and compassion in space, but you might not receive it from me. I might not be the best person to provide it to you. And that's going to be a specific boundary that I have, and you listening are entitled to your own specific boundaries of who and when you can provide that space for. So I think that is what I truly mean. Everyone deserves love and kindness and space and witnesses to talk about their feelings. Not everybody wants to talk about their feelings, though. Not everybody wants to get to the deeper part. And I think that's where some people are like, will never get there. And I still believe that they deserve to, and that they deserve people in their life who want to help them break free of their patterns, but I might not be the right person for you. Okay. I think that's all for this advice letter. Thank you so much to everybody listening. If you have thoughts about this conversation, I'd love to hear from them. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear them. I think I have a few more things I want to say before we wrap up, but I recorded something a couple of days ago, actually, after I went trick-or-treating with my neighbors. I was feeling it, and I wanted to capture the moment of what I was feeling. So I'm going to plug that in right here, and then I'll come back at the end for a few more updates from me. Last night was Halloween, and Brian and I went trick-or-treating with my neighbors. My neighbors are 11 and 13 years old, and then, of course, their mom. They're not like our direct neighbor. They live down the street and kind of around the corner. And we met through Francis. One of the best parts of having a dog is it one of the best parts? A really wonderful side effect of having a dog for us has been meeting them. The first time we met them, they were walking in front of our house, and we had just gotten Francis recently, and their dog is 1 month older. and they kind of played in front of our yard for a second, and both of our dogs like could really play. We don't do a lot of on-leash greetings anymore. When we first got Francis, I didn't really know about this, but on-leash greetings can be a little bit dangerous, and Francis is super friendly, but she's very playful, and she likes to jump and play, and it can be a really difficult situation on the leash. But Cherry and Francis, Cherry is the other dog's name, they just like played so well together. Even when they were on the leash, they both like to tumble, and they're like equal players, which can be kind of hard to find in some dogs, especially when you have an energetic puppy. So we got along really well then. We probably stood in front of my house for 10 minutes, and then they walked along, and I didn't get their phone number. And a few days later, I saw the mom and the daughter walking the dog again. And I like ran out of the house and stopped them and asked for their phone number and wanted to organize a puppy play date. And, 7 months later, we've all become very good friends. And the younger daughter really helps take care of the dog. So sometimes she'll come and hang out in our backyard alone. And we all know each other well enough now that the mom feels comfortable having her with us. Anyway, it was Halloween, and they invited us to go trick-or-treating. And Brian and I were like so touched that the girls wanted to include us. It's funny, I'm like right in the middle age-wise of the girls and the mom. And I would think there are moments when I'm hanging out with the girls in the backyard where I'm like, how do you guys see me? Like, do I seem really, really old to you? Do I seem sort of old? And they say, like, you seem sort of old. They'll say, you seem in your 30s, because now they know I'm 32, and they think, I suppose, that that's a diplomatic way to say it. Anyway, we went trick-or-treating with them, and the experience like kind of made me realize how special it is to have multi-generational friendships, maybe. And really, I guess step one is just how special it is to be connected to kids and have relationships with kids. I think I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. My own conflicted isn't even really the right word, but having kids, the decision about having kids doesn't feel, it's becoming more simple in my head, or it's becoming more clear. Clear is the better word, but it hasn't felt like a very clear decision for me over the last several years. The thought process has brought up a lot of complicated feelings I have about my childhood and the type of parent I want to be, or the type of parent I'm capable of being, and what do I want, and will I be good at this? And it's just brought up a lot of complicated questions for me that have made the decision just feel intense. And I think the decision you should give a lot of thought to this decision. And over the last 6 months or so, maybe a little longer than that, as I've talked about some of these things more with my therapist and with friends, and just have been a little bit more honest about where my feelings are coming from myself, the idea of having a kid feels much more like in my reach. And though spending time with these two girls has definitely had an impact on it as well. And last night, trick-or-treating with them, I had this feeling, though, that the benefit of getting to have a relationship with kids hasn't even only been great because of the way it makes me see myself as a potential parent, but it reminded me that there are so many ways to get the benefits of experiencing kids. There are so many ways that you as an adult can get the joy of having relationships with younger people that doesn't include being their parent. You don't need to be a parent in order to have relationships with young people and to be a mentor to them and to learn from them just as they'll learn from you. Like, it really does take a village. There are so many ways to be in community with other people. And it feels like if my relationship with these two girls like really feels very fulfilling, and I'm so honored. Like last night after we went after trick-or-treating, the youngest daughter, one of her friends, was there with us, and Brian overheard them. We were walking back to the house after like the hour and a half of trick-or-treating, and the younger daughter said to her friend, okay, when we go into our room, let's go into my room afterwards and we can separate our candy, and is it okay if Alexandra comes? Is it okay if Alexandra comes? Because she wanted me to be in there with them. And I didn't hear that part, but I knew she wanted me in the room, and I went in and we all organized our candy, and I was so like, it made me feel so good to want to be there. It made me feel so good that they wanted me there. But then when Brian told me that later, it just like really made my heart feel warm. the older daughter, she's in eighth grade, and in their reading class, their teacher is having them participate in NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, which is a really fun community of writers if anyone is interested in writing a novel. Basically, I haven't actually done it, but oh, why is my light falling apart? I haven't done it, but it's a way. The goal is to write a novel. I think it's like 20,000 words, which is not a full novel, but it's certainly the start of one. A first draft could be around that length, maybe. I'm pulling 20,000 words out of my bum. I don't actually know if that's the truth, but the goal is you write every day to finish a draft of a novel really quickly, and the eighth graders are doing that. And she asked me yesterday if I would be her accountability buddy and if we could work on writing together, because they've noticed they know that I like to write and that I might be writing a book, and so sweet. But when Brian and I left last night, I was like, it's funny. I asked him, I said, how does spending time with them, how has it made you feel about being a parent? And we talked a little bit about that. But then I'm like, the funny thing though, is that this relationship we have with the girls, because Brian's very close with them too, the relationship we have with them, isn't really possible if we were their parents. There is a very special relationship you can have with a kid when you are not their mom or their dad. You get to be their friend in a way. And of course, that's not to say that being a parent isn't incredibly special, but it's different. The way I get to interact with the girls and the way I talk to them and the way they come to me, maybe they wouldn't come to me that way if I was their mom. And I talk about this with their actual mom. I talk about this with their actual mom. One of the reasons they come to me is because I am not their mother. And the same way that I go to people who are not in my family and say we have different friends for different reasons. The relationship we have in some ways is possible because we are not related. And it felt so encouraging just to realize there are so many ways that you can have a life that includes kids and includes children and includes teenagers. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean having kids. And it's made me realize that in addition to having children, I also really value and want to be a part of kids' lives who are not my kids. I don't know. It felt kind of major for me to have that realization, it almost took parenthood off of a pedestal a little bit, which I kind of needed. Parenthood, of course, is its own experience, but it reminded me just of how many different types of relationships we can have. And even if you don't become a parent, you don't necessarily miss out on getting to be in connection with young people. Because that's it is a really nice feeling to be a mentor to someone, or to have somebody need you or want your opinion in the way that can happen when you have these major age gaps. And yes, these girls are much younger than me, 20 or so years younger than me. But it also reminded me that I really like having friendships too with people who are 10, 20 years older than me. And that is maybe a little lacking in my life right now. Probably since moving to LA, and I've made less, probably since both moving to LA and working for myself. When I had jobs, in my last corporate job, I had much more multi-generational friendships because I was working with people of many generations, and I have always been interested in pursuing those types of friendships. I guess one question that maybe I'll throw out now that I'm thinking about it. I obviously am coming to this conversation as a person who does not have a child, but is friends with an 11 and 13-year-old. I'd love to hear from other people, both who don't have children. Are you friends with any kids? Is it nieces and nephews? Is it people in your building, down the block? What do those friendships look like? And then also people with children. I'm curious, how have your relationships with other kids that are not yours changed? Do you still have them? Is it easy to maintain them? Is it challenging? How are you working through that? I'm kind of curious. It's making me, I feel really pleased and happy to be reminded that kids are an important part of my life. And I want my future to be a future that includes me getting to be, oh my God, why is this making me emotional? That includes me getting to be around young people. And I think it brings up emotions too, because I know I touched on this earlier. It's almost maybe this is bringing in some of my fears. I have feel like I have more control over my relationship with my 11-year-old neighbor. But like, what if you have a kid and they don't like you? Like, and I think the reality is they're not going to like you sometimes. And how sad and hurtful that must be and feel, and how much strength you have to not take that personally. Or you can take it personally, but have it not impact your behavior. There's just so many uncertainties. And, I watch the way it's clear to me that they both love their mom. Like, it's so freaking clear to me, even when we were trick-or-treating last night, and the way they kind of kept looking back, and they love their mom. But I'm just imagining like how hard I could see how it could hurt my feelings if my 11-year-old also wanted to hang out with, I could see how it could hurt my feelings if my 11-year-old seemed to like somebody else more than me. I'm not, again, not saying that that's what's happening here at all. And I know how much the mom appreciates. Like last week, the younger daughter had a tough day at school, and she texted me and asked if she could come over and do some math homework. And I said, abso-freaking-lutely. And she came over and we talked a little, and we were doing the math homework, and I had no idea how to find the greatest common denominator or whatever it was. Brian came home, and then we were trying to do it and figure out how to show her work, and we were watching YouTube videos, and the three of us are laughing, and it was so nice. And I guess in my head, I'm like, I would want my kid to want to do that with me. But at the same time, I know that their mom really appreciated the break. And I'm not putting words in her mouth. She told that to me. It's just complicated, And I guess sometimes I fear inviting like more complicated feelings in, and it can just be kind of scary to think about. It's scary to think about what you don't know. But I do know that I do love kids. I do love kids. It's what made me want to be a teacher as my first job. I do love kids. That's the only reason I wanted to be a teacher. I was much more interested in the kids piece of the equation than the, craft of being a teacher. And curious just to hear all your guys' thoughts on that. I think that's all I have to say on this topic. But I wanted to record it the day after. The rest of the podcast might be in a different outfit, but it is the next day after Halloween, and I wanted to get all these thoughts out while they are fresh. And I'm back. My mom is in town today. It's kind of a crazy week. My mom is in town now, and I'm flying to New York. And tomorrow we have our best friend's wedding next weekend, and I can't freaking wait. I'm going wedding dress shopping with my mom later this afternoon. I'm working this morning and then playing hooky the rest of the afternoon. We're going wedding dress shopping for my sister's wedding together. My sister's getting married next August, and I'm definitely feeling a little bit stressed about all that needs to get done in the next 12 hours. But I've done it before, and it'll be okay, and I can handle chaotic. I've become such like a routine girl, and I've become so comfortable in the fact that I design my own schedule and like can kind of move at my own pace and get things done whenever I want. And I've become so almost inflexible. It's not that I'm inflexible, but I'm much more when I have to like work in a crazy way. And the way I work normally is still pretty crazy, but it's my crazy. When I have to work in a crazy way on somebody else's, like by somebody else's accord, or because the world is like my just responsibilities and logistics make me have to work in a crazy way, I can just feel a little bit more unsettled. So this is a good reminder that later tonight, I need to do something to ground myself. Maybe I'll make sure I can carve out 20 minutes of puzzle time. Carve out 20 minutes of puzzle time or something. I don't know. I'm going to have to come up with something better than that. I love you all. It is almost the holidays, so I do want to actually have one little plug for sending me any holiday-based advice submissions. hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com. Holidays can be a loose term, but I know that around this time of year, we are going back to our hometowns and seeing friends that we haven't seen in a long time. We are having dinner with family members who maybe we have complicated relationships with. Maybe the holidays bring up loneliness for you, or you're feeling sad that you're not where you thought you were going to be this Christmas. Whatever it is, I would love to talk with you about it. So please send me those letters if you have them. I love you all. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening every week. Thanks for leaving those reviews. If you did when I asked last time, I appreciate you. And if you haven't yet, left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's super helpful. Okay. I'll talk to you guys soon.